What's up, bodyweight warriors? Welcome back to another video. Before we jump into this one, I did something dumb again. just roll the clip, James.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only.
So, as I think that clip has established, the something dumb that I did was injure myself again. You'd have thought by now that I would learn from this sort of stuff, or the fact that, I teach it as a job, I would know better, but no, we're all susceptible to doing stupid stuff from time to time. So, here's what happened. I was just training my usual weekly middle split session, which actually have been making some reasonable progress in terms of how my middle splits feel, and I've been getting flat basically, which has been really nice. It's been the first time in probably a couple of years that I've been really flat without actually any hip discomfort as well, and they're feeling particularly good. So I was like, what would look for the gram? A chair split. For some reason I was like, yeah, likes, Instagram, let's post this, ego. And the set you saw was literally the first attempt. Slid down, first time trying it on those IKEA boxes, which, by the way, not the best decision. They were kind of like sticking and shifting and sticking and shifting, so you were getting this like jolting sort of motion, which was part of the issue of the tear, because basically as I got down into that bottom position, which is actually, silver linings, positive note, it was pretty low, it was pretty controlled, but in that bottom position there was a little jolt, and in that jolt I kind of felt my adductor like a little tear, and that's why I made a quick exit. And then that was it for the session. I was like, you know what, I'm done. Wasn't painful at the time itself, was very painful that evening. So yeah, now like 5 days on, still generally the pain has gone, like the general movement stuff, but that specific adductor pain using it is still there, which I'm not surprised, and it's probably going to be here for a good month, maybe 3 months. At the end of the day, it's my own stupidity, but we all make mistakes, and the only bad mistakes that we make are the ones that we don't learn from. So hopefully I won't make this one again. I'm not making any promises though. So rather than listen to me just moan about my injury, I do want to chat to you a little bit about what I'm going to do. A lot of people end up getting injured in one way or another, and some of the things that I am going to share can kind of just generally be applied to injuries. So I hope this helps you out, but of course this isn't injury advice, this isn't a diagnosis, this isn't that sort of stuff. If you went and you broke your arm, you would go to the hospital, you'd go see a doctor. Likewise, if you injure yourself, go see somebody who knows what they're talking about. Don't listen to a kid chatting shit on the internet. Book an appointment with a physio, get an assessment, get it done, get it sorted. But here's my 2 cents on the topic. Okay, so let's talk injury rehab stuff. Now, this is not generic advice, very hard to give generic injury advice. I'm just going to talk you through what I am doing myself, some of the steps along the way, what I have learned based on my learning from other physios. I used to work under a physio, my own research, and also then my own experience with being injured, because I have many of them. Seeing a professional is my general recommendation. I will still seek some advice for this injury from other people. So step number 1 is rest. Now this is something that I haven't given myself in the past, and I was sure to give myself this time. People don't want to lose gains. That's ultimately it. We work very hard to achieve the things we do. You don't want to let go of them. But ultimately, if you get injured, there's going to be some form of regression. Just understand that it will get better in the long term, unless it's a very serious injury. Now, I've been injured on multiple occasions, and I am still, up until a few days ago, the strongest, the most flexible, the most skillful that I've ever been. So that mindset is definitely useful when you are injured, just knowing that things will get better eventually, given time. Don't try to force it. Don't be afraid to give yourself a week rest, even longer if you feel that it's needed. This doesn't mean you just sit and put your feet up on the sofa, because not doing any movement can be just as bad as doing some movement. I myself personally, although I've got this adductor strain, I've just kind of been keeping up some general movement. I go for my morning walks, like today's incredible sunrise. I've done a little bit of basic movement of the lower body, stuff that doesn't even relate or bother it, just to kind of keep that blood flow going, that lymph circulation, and just moving it. Because if you just leave an injury, it can get locked up and it can get tighter, and this is a bit of a protective thing by the body because it doesn't want you to use something that's injured. Number 2 is assess the issue. Find out what's actually wrong. Now, most physios will go about doing this with like some manual muscle testing or some movement testing. So we'll basically figure out what movements, what positions cause you pain, where is that pain, and then from there we can infer what the issue is. Now this requires some knowledge of just biomechanics and anatomy in general, which is why I say go see a physio and figure out what the actual issue is, what's the root cause of the problem, rather than the options that you can find on the internet. For me personally, I get the most pain when I flex my knee. So this would be standing, trying to lift the heel towards the bum, and I get increased pain if I abduct the leg, so I bring it out to the side. That, along with a couple other tests, indicates to me that it's going to be adductor magnus, so one of the adductors, which makes sense as I injured myself doing middle splits. Once you know roughly what is injured, what patterns cause pain, then you can go about thinking, how do we rehab this? One of the first basic things that I like to do after some rest is to start adding in some daily isometric work. This is done at an extremely low intensity. There shouldn't be hardly any pain at all. And I might just spend just a few times a day doing 30 to 40 second isometric hold in a position that is that sort of painful range of motion. So for me personally, this would be just standing, lifting the knee up and holding. Again, I'm not doing this very intense. It's just very basic. It's just about getting that muscle to contract, that muscle to work, and then also bringing in some blood flow to it without any muscle damage. This can very easily be overdone, and ultimately things will go downhill rather than uphill, so things should be getting better if you do this. So that's really the basic stage of the movement sort of stuff. Point number 3 is actually introducing some proper movements and some proper rehab strength work. Realistically, all this is about dialing things back to more basic movements, identifying the movements that are going to be affected by the injury, and then progressively loading them to build, strengthen, and build capacity in that injured area. The key with this is not doing too much. People will often get a little bit overzealous with how their injury is feeling, and they might try to go back a little bit too soon to where they think their 100% is at, whereas their injury is only maybe 50-60% recovered, thinking they can muscle through it, and ultimately it just gets worse, and then you go back and it's back and forth, and you just flip-flop between being injured and not being injured, and it's just, you elongate the process wherever there's something that might take, I don't know, a month or 3 months, ends up taking 6 months for you to get back to that 100%. Now, I've done that myself. I've made that mistake. Trust me, it's just not smart. Don't try and rush these things. Build back up slowly, slower than you think, and gradually begin to load it. So I will be introducing some basic leg strengthening drills, some hip hinging, some glute work, some lunges, some basic patterns, as well as some specific strengthening of my adductor magnus. Maybe I'll share those specific exercises in a future video for you. But essentially the process is going to look something like isometrics, slow movements, slow heavier movements, faster movements, and then kind of phased return to normal-ish training. Right, I'm sorry for lots of rambles on that one. I know that was maybe useful for some people, maybe boring for others, but ultimately injuries are a very humbling experience, and I've certainly learned a lot from them in the past. So I'm not super upset. I'm a little bit annoyed, mostly annoyed that I can't do the Nordics, because I've actually really been enjoying training Nordics. But there's always plenty you can do. That's one of the best things that I would recommend to you if you're injured, is accept that you're injured, work to fix it, but then focus on something else. When I hurt my elbows, I had ulnar nerve compression, golf's elbow, couldn't do any upper body training, so I got middle splits. There's always a silver lining, always something you can work on. So ultimately, I think it comes down to a bit of that Stoic sports science, Stoic philosophy. such as Ross Edgley said, which was the first book club. By the way, on the second one, the Talent Code, highly recommend it. We'll be talking a lot about how to learn skills and all that sort of stuff. I'll link that one down below. Essentially, focus on things you can control. Don't worry too much about the rest. You're injured, you can't control that. What can you control? Getting better, and all of the other things you can train. So I can still do handstands, I can still do upper body training, I can still build up the chesticles, do some biceps. Long term, everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. But I'm just going to end today's video there. I just wanted to kind of update you a little bit more in detail about the injury and hopefully give you some advice that might help your own self, your own training out. I hope it does. I'd love to hear from you. Do you have an injury story? I'm sure a lot of you out there do. Let me know in the comments down below. How did it happen? What was the reason for it? What did you do to get better? Join the conversation. If you just enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button to support the channel. Right next to it is that subscribe button. Join the Bodyweight Warrior tribe. Don't miss out on any more future videos. But that's basically been it for this week, guys. Catch you in the next episode. Have a strong week, and